Okay, so welcome back, and also to the people joining on the live stream on our YouTube channel. We are recording the morning sessions at 8:30 a.m. and these evening sessions at 7:30 on the live stream. So not all the whole retreat is not streamed live, but just those two. So the juicy bits. So we'll start with the first question. I'll read them out to Ajahn Brahm and then we'll answer them one by one. Yeah, we'll take turns with the answering, unless I delegate. So the first question is about the Noble Eightfold Path. The second factor of the Noble Eightfold Path is divided into 3 categories. Please explain how to follow each of them. This is like a whole Dhamma talk. And explain the renunciation category in some detail. Thank you. A little detail.
Okay. In just an hour, we cannot describe it in great detail. For the renunciation means you're not trying to add things to the accumulation of wisdom and possessions and status which you have already. Renunciation is seeing how much you can lessen the burdens you carry from moment to moment. A lot of times in life we want to win new things, get new experiences, see how much we can improve. But here we know the path towards peace is seeing how much less we can possess. It's one of the reasons why I say never be a winner, but be a loser. See how much you can lose. Be the greatest loser, where everything is not yours. If you think that you are a self, a being, and then you want to own more, attain more, get more, and our ideal as Buddhists on the path towards enlightenment is seeing how much we can lessen, how much we can give up, how much smaller our group of possessions are. The smaller those group of possessions are, the easier it is to be kind. If you have lots of things to be concerned about or to protect, sometimes it means that we don't have much time for others. Kindness vanishes. The other thing is the gentleness. There's 3 factors of the second part of the Eightfold Path: renunciation, kindness, and gentleness. It makes life, practicing the Eightfold Path, much more peaceful. So that's my explanation. I can't go into detail because there's so much other questions have come up now.
But we'll probably touch on it, I'm sure, in other talks. Okay. For the last 5 years, I've been through a medical process and now I'm physically unable to feel my body as I did before. Due to a neurological issue, my sensations have decreased a lot. I don't feel my body, pain, or even pleasure as I did. In meditation, I have a lot of problems with the scanning of the body. I barely feel the sensations anymore and I'm confused about my new state. How can I explore these new neutral sensations when neutral feels like nothing? How can I let go of my old ones? Well, you've already let go of your old ones because they've gone. So they're not there anymore. So they have already disappeared. And in fact, all our sensations are constantly disappearing. They're constantly changing. So in that sense, there's no such thing as old ones that we have or even had. They vanished almost as soon as they arose. So the interesting thing in this question is that you're not able to feel your body as you did before, but you certainly do feel your body. If you didn't feel your body, you wouldn't be able to walk. You wouldn't be able to put one foot in front of the other. I do hope you're still able to walk, having said that. But there will be some kind of bodily awareness in order to feed yourself, in order to walk, in order to know when you're sitting, know when you're standing, etc. But those sensations might be a lot more subtle than they used to be. And so I would say it's important not to look for any particular sensation, but to just tune into what is right there now And as I was explaining in the guided meditation, to an extent, sometimes it's just a matter of opening up our mind and waiting for something to arise, just opening up and receiving whatever's there. And as we stay present with the moment, we start to experience things that are more and more subtle. It's like the lights turn up in the mind, and you start to see that what you initially couldn't observe becomes clearer and clearer. So you will start to feel sensations this way. But if you're looking for the old kind of sensations, then that won't be there. It'll be something different. One thing you can always do, however, if the scanning the body continues to be unbeneficial and difficult for you, is to notice the way you're relating to the experience that you're having. So this relates back to the previous question, which is learning to understand the way you're aware. So not so much what you're aware of, but your attitudes, your relationship to whatever's in front of the mind. And if it's not physical bodily sensations, there will be some feeling in the mind. So you can start to be aware of mental states. You can start to be aware of things like peace or agitation or worry, or maybe anxiety around not feeling many sensations in your body. And actually have a look at how you're relating to that, and then add in that space between what you're aware of and the awareness itself, add those 3 right intentions of kindness and gentleness, not trying to force any particular experience, not trying to make yourself aware of sensations when you actually don't feel anything right now, that's your experience. And also the renunciation, which in this case I would say means a sense of making peace with whatever is there, even when there doesn't seem to be much there. Lastly, I would say around the confusion about your new state, see if you can perhaps just slightly change the idea of confusion into curiosity, because the two are similar actually. Curiosity is a much more positive aspect of confusion. You're not quite aware yet about what's happening, and it's a new experience for you. So see if you can actually be curious about that. And, just ask yourself, oh, this is interesting. How can I be with this? How can I hold this in kindness? How can I learn from this? And just allow the mind to open up. So I think that actually, in the end, scanning the body might help you to be more aware of subtle sensations. But if that doesn't work, as I say, be more aware of your attitude of mind. Does that make sense?
Brilliant.
Shall I read this one out for you?
Okay.
Warmest heartfelt wishes, Ajahn Brahm. In brief, could you kindly teach us how to realize mudita jhana while contemplating the qualities of karuna, anudaya, and anukampa? The thought arose, perhaps one of the most compassionate and meritorious ways to benefit others, oneself, both, and the whole world is to realize the perfection of appreciation. Arahants must have the purest empathetic joy, appreciation of goodness, and gratitude for the Blessed One's kindness. How wonderful. In brief, this is not brief. Please teach us how to cultivate the 7 factors of awakening through empathetic joy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
If it's empathetic joy, then that will eventually enhance one's mindfulness. Because when you have joy, you'll find you'll be able to focus so much more easily on what's right in front of you. And that will eventually lead to every one of the other 6 factors of the 7 enlightenment factors. Once one is developed, it causes the others to arise. So that's how that one works. I'm really trying hard not to give a sermon after I answer a question.
Yeah, there are going to be a lot of questions, so
yes.
Let's see what we can do. All right, so as I understand it, we need to practice the whole of the Eightfold Path, including jhanas, which is a prerequisite to seeing through the first 3 fetters and entering into the stream. Elsewhere, I've seen the Buddha talk about the faith or Dhamma-follower, faith and the Dhamma-follower, as someone who has arrived at a level of faith in the teachings by way of reasoning and is destined for stream entry in this life or at death, and who's incapable of performing any actions by body, speech, or mind which would lead to rebirth in the lower realms. What are the prerequisites for a faith follower? Is the first jhana also required at this stage? I'm really glad that I asked Ajahn Brahm this question recently, actually. Not so much what is required for a faith follower, but certainly whether jhana is required at this stage. And it seems that no, it is not required to be either a dhammanusari or a saddhanusari. So the one who enters the stream through faith being particularly strong, or dhamma, understanding of the dhamma, so wisdom, in other words, being particularly strong. So the prerequisites for a faith follower, I think, is probably just someone with a lot of inspiration, so much inspiration and love for the Dhamma, love for the noble ones, love for virtue, a real commitment to virtue, a commitment to the path. And I would imagine those qualities have to be there also for the Dhammanusari. It's not that the Dhammanusari doesn't have faith and that the faith follower doesn't have wisdom. It's just a matter of emphasis. So I would say, and this is my understanding, it may be something you want to add to or correct, that the faith and the Dhamma need to be sufficient to keep you pretty much on the path. Yes. At least within the vicinity of the Eightfold Path. I mean, and if you sometimes make mistakes, you quickly get back on. So the path starts to kind of come alive within you. You start to become the path, and the path starts to take over.
Yeah, eventually the jhana happens.
Right.
Because that's part of the path.
Yeah, that's the thing here, because you're saying about you need to practice this or that, but it happens as a matter of course. So I think we don't have to worry about it. We don't have to worry about, is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? It's just a matter of practicing all the factors of the path and deepening every single one of them. And at some point when they come together, then they culminate in the first jhana. And then you have a chance to see things as they are and actually break through to stream winning. Okay, this is a good one. My question is, how do you live this? Oh, see above and below. Don't understand that. Oh, I think you just mean the previous question. Okay, so the question is, how do you live it? So I guess everything we've been talking about so far.
How you live, you've got no choice. It's an automatic process. So you don't have to decide. You just become someone who needs less, who doesn't get angry at other people, who lives much more simply, and lives with more peace and more kindness. You don't decide. These things happen naturally. Just become a more peaceful person.
Okay. Could you please give more context as to why ill will is blocking us from experiencing the unpleasant? My thinking is that ill will does the opposite of sensual desire, distorts the reality by giving it exaggerated negative characteristics rather than blocking the unpleasant. Thank you. That's an interesting question. I'm not sure if I remember where or how that was stated. But I do think it could be both, that ill will can both distort the reality by overemphasizing the negative aspects of reality, or let's not even say of reality, negative experiences, or let's say, I don't really like the word negative because that's what we add to it. Something like disagreeable, things we don't like, things that cause anger, things that cause ill will within us. But I also think that ill will can be ill will towards ill will. It can be ill will towards, say, unpleasant sensations. That's very, very common. Or ill will towards disagreeable mental states, things that cause us suffering like grief or anxiety. There can be a lot of ill will to that. So ill will blocks us from experiencing the anxiety because we simply react and we go into this automatic wanting to get rid. So the way to actually understand is always to open up to experience, to turn towards it in a sense, with a lot of kindness and compassion. So not just to kind of force ourselves into the unpleasant, but to really kind of go gently into it, hand in hand with kindness, when we're ready to do so. And that way we can stay with it for longer. As Ajahn Brahm was saying, you know, when you're enjoying yourself with a friend, it's so easy to be with them. But sometimes we can enjoy ourselves with someone who's actually suffering, or if you're a mother or maybe a father, your little child is kind of lashing out, and you know it's kind of unpleasant because it hurts you as a parent if they sort of say, I hate you, mummy, I don't want you to be my mummy anymore. But you know, the best way to deal with that is to embrace that child and to tell them, that's okay, darling, I still love you anyway, I'll be here for you when you come back. So we have to always have this attitude of kindness, and that way we can open up to the pleasant and the unpleasant and learn from both. Okay, this is for Ajahn Brahm. Hello, I really appreciated the Sutta teaching this afternoon. Thank you. I have a regular meditation practice, however, feel frustrated with it. I know what I shouldn't do, which is strive, and I know I need to relax and let go, but can't seem to help the wanting and striving for the jhanas. I think that if I can do the jhanas, then I will have done it. I will know freedom and won't be unhappy anymore. Oh, yes, you will. I don't feel much joy in my practice, but if I do sense any piti arising, I get excited and snatch at it, and then of course it disappears. I feel that I'm not getting anywhere, and my mind tells me, you can't do the jhanas. Do you have any jhana meditation advice that could help me, please? Thanks so much.
Yes. Many times if a person's actually experienced the jhana, they want it back again. And they forget that instead of wanting the jhana back again, want the causes for the jhana. Why did the jhana happen? A jhana happens when you abandon, you renounce like wanting and ill will. You're just not interested in that anymore. And a lot of times, the first time a person experiences the jhana, it is a surprise because you didn't do it. You put all the causes in place, you were patient, and then it just happens. I know that many times people say, I'm just answering all these questions the same. It's natural, it just happens. You can see that what I'm doing in answering the questions that way is taking away your person, your personality, who you are. Get that out of the way and just let it go for a little while, and the results kind of happen. They have to sooner or later. And imagine when you don't give yourself any burdens. You're sitting down there just relaxing to the max. That's one of the little sayings which I coined. Relax to the max, which means you don't do anything. You don't make burdens for your meditation. And eventually you just start to see after a while, it happens automatically. The causes are in place, and then these things happen. But be careful, because when they start to happen, that's when we start to get involved. I used to play this game of snakes and ladders when I was a child. And I always remember the game of snakes and ladders, that when you get to almost the finished square, when you almost win, that's when the biggest snake is there and you go all the way down again. You have to start all over again. And that's a great simile for jhanas. You think you work so hard in the last square, back down again. But that's because you're trying. Sometimes you just sit there, you've got an hour to meditate, make peace, be kind, be gentle. Even if you don't get a jhana, it's still very beautiful, peaceful meditation. Keep doing a lot of those, and eventually you surprise yourself, it happens.
Can I also add, though, that the suffering doesn't end because you experience jhana. It ends temporarily in jhana. But then you have to come back to the world and you realize what a big mess it is.
But at least you kind of know the way out.
Yeah. But it's not an end in itself. It's the purpose of it is, of course, to learn a different kind of much more sublime happiness and how to let go and some insight into non-self. But the purpose is actually for stream winning, for seeing suffering and finding the way out of suffering. Okay, so on retreat, I've heard the word heart-based materiality. What does this mean? I think this means that your teacher has been reading the Abhidhamma. So I don't really know, but I have a feeling it means Hridayavatu, possibly. We used to hear about that quite a lot in the Goenka tradition, about the kind of heart area, like Hridayavatu, I forget what they used to call it. But it was a kind of meditation where you would kind of keep the mind in the area of the heart for some time and just watch things changing very quickly from that area. And they sort of had this view that that was getting closer to the kind of deeper layers of the unconscious mind. And I think this is a little bit of an interpretation of some of the Abhidhamma teachings, perhaps, and maybe it's a method in Myanmar that's practiced to kind of still the mind rather than moving around the body continuously, and to kind of get to some more one-pointedness. But I don't think that actually comes up in the suttas anywhere, does it?
No.
So I would say, if you don't understand it, leave it aside. The main thing in the practice is it leading towards more peace, more clarity, more compassion in your daily life? And if you are practicing to still the mind, is it leading gently towards letting go and one-pointedness? Yeah, in brief. So here we go. How do I know I've suppressed the 5 hindrances and in the first jhana? Are all the 4 qualities, initial and sustained application, piti and sukha, and one-pointedness, all present in the jhana? But later, initial application and sustained application subside in the first jhana.
They are all present together, like all aspects of one thing. And the application is not something you do, it is just the experience of a first jhana. It's just very, very beautiful, very still. That's why the Buddha called it Sambodhi Sukha. That's the object which you are observing. That's a huge amount of joy. It sort of drags you in, it pulls you in. And if you tend to hold it because you haven't let go 100%, only 99.99999%, it means there is still some instability there, and you move away from that piti sukha. You don't lose it, you move away, and you feel yourself get dragged in there again. That's the movement of the mind towards the piti sukha and the holding the piti sukha, which is the meaning of the vitaka vichara. But at the same time, that's one way of remembering it, because you can't think about anything when you're inside that experience. When you come out afterwards, you realize there was so much piti and sukha. And the ekaggata, I always like to remember that agga does not mean, it doesn't mean one-pointedness, one peakedness of mind, one summit of mind. The agga, like the Agra, the capital of Mughal India, it's not an ordinary just point, it's a huge, powerful point. These are all at the same time. And this is when you come out of the meditation, wow, they're so powerful, so big. I don't know how anybody can come out of a deep meditation like that after an hour or two and say, oh, what was that? Of course, you'll look back upon it, one of the biggest experiences you've ever had. And then that's where you analyze it. And that's when you figure out or you see what actually was happening in there.
The question continues, I think, with a simple yes, actually. Then the piti prominent in second jhana subsides, sukha in the third, and one-pointedness in the fourth. Well, giving rise to equanimity and powerful mindfulness with a still mind to see reality as it is, like in the Bahya Sutta, or insights like impermanence. So they're asking what subsides in which jhana. So piti subsides.
Yes, they don't kind of subside, they disappear, they vanish.
But I think it's actually the vitaka vichara that subsides in the second, and it's the piti that subsides in the third, and then the sukha in the fourth, and the sukha is equanimity and mindfulness. You still have the ekaggata there.
Still a pretty cool state.
All right, dear Venerables, based on your experience during formal practice, how do you typically regain focus when a distracted, restless mind takes over and tends to interrupt the sitting? Thank you so much. Well, that's a good one for me because I think that happens more often to me than it happens to Ajahn Brahm. I don't even try and regain. I don't even think of it as something that is a problem, actually. In fact, most often when I start to practice, there is a little bit of distraction and restlessness simply because I've been busy during the day, like really, really busy with lots and lots of different people. But then when I sit down and I notice what a relief it is to have a moment of quiet, a moment of silence to myself, the restlessness just does start to settle. And if it comes up again, I don't kind of try and grab to the piece that I had before. I just stay still with it and again check my attitude, like, how am I relating to the distracted, restless mind? Sometimes it might be the case that I apply a remedy. So if there's the kind of restlessness or distraction that's a bit tight or brittle or even agitated or annoyed, then I might try a little bit of metta practice. And it's not necessarily active. I don't necessarily move into may I be happy or form sentences of loving kindness, although that can be helpful. But sometimes it's just being kind to the distracted or restless mind. So I don't consider this an interruption. I consider it all grist for the mill and food for insight. For me, my attitude in meditation is understanding my mind. And that leads to peace. Peace is the outcome, for me, of understanding the way the mind works. Okay. After the wonderful online retreat with you last year, the following happened. Okay, just check. Okay, let's go. After coming out of a blissful meditation, the realization that grasping is the suffering went completely into the heart and made it very peaceful. The heart was completely still. Nobody was there. There was tiny energy particles and sounds, but no forms and no self. Nothing needed to be added, nothing to be taken away, simply because there was no one there that needed anything. This realization brought the deepest peace and freedom I've ever known. It changed my perspective about what the spiritual path is about. The sense of self eventually returned and feels more like a prison now, really feels more like a prison now. Was that a jhana or an insight? And is it true that the sense of self creates the separate something? The question ended with the word separate. So I guess, does the sense of self create separation or sense of separation, I guess?
Yeah, the sense of self is caused by that separation. Sense of self is almost like created by just doing something or thinking that was what caused the success in meditation. It's nice to know that the sense of self vanishes to cause those lovely states. You let go, and through letting go, the mind becomes peaceful and still and blissed out. While you're actually in the deep jhanas are very, very, very still. And the only way that you can actually contemplate them is after you emerge from the jhanas, the afterwards. And in those jhanas, each one of them, the 5 hindrances have so disappeared that you will have a very clear memory of them. And your mindfulness gets empowered. And you think you know what mindfulness is, but then mindfulness gets extremely strong when you emerge from these jhanas. And once you emerge from them, then you can actually investigate them. You find just within those jhanas, you cannot gain wisdom in a jhana. It gives you the power, the data, and the power of the mind to investigate afterwards. And there you can find out exactly what they were. And also to see the sense of self and to see how that sense of self can be reinforced if you look at those experiences as if you did it.
Yeah, okay. Dear Ajahn, we're both Ajahn, so that's a good relief, isn't it? You said that meditation is a natural process. Does the quiet mind know the way into deep stillness, or is it that there has to be a subtle impulse to nudge it in the right direction, for example, from piti to sukha? So I would say that the subtle impulse is actually the teachings of the Buddha. It's the word of another. It's the teachings that you've heard. That is the impulse. We hear these teachings and we know the way. We know the general direction of the path. And that will be enough to kind of make sure we stay on that trajectory. Does it know its way into deep stillness? What do you think, Ajahn? I wouldn't quite put it that way.
You're making a sense of self out of the mind. It just starts to disappear more and more and more and more. It starts to lose the identity. It's a kind of description which makes no sense. It's not like it decides to do something. It just fades away. I mean, does the night, when the sun goes down, does the night know how to get darker and darker and darker and darker? It's just a process which is quite natural, unwilled. Sense of will, choice, disappearing.
Okay, I just moved to a tiny village in the UK with my husband from Singapore. My kids went to uni. I love the environment and glad there's a lot of time and quietness to practice. However, I discover a repetitive pattern to use willpower to fill the day up with things to do, including meditations and sutta study, largely caused by the underlying fear and anxiety of this sudden open time and space with little distraction. Please advise what could be done to practice in a more wholesome way.
Who answered the last question? You both did.
Kind of both. Shall I do that, or do you want to do that?
Off you go.
Okay. I would say be very patient with your mind. It's quite natural that when you've just got to a new place and you've got a lot of time on your hands, the kids have gone to university, that you don't quite know what to do with your time. But I would say you're using your time really, really well. You're actually practicing meditation, reading the suttas, so you're really on the right track. And the underlying fear and anxiety is just part of the practice. It's just part of starting to familiarize yourself with your mind. You know, when we're always distracted by the busyness in our lives, by our families, by our kids, then of course we don't really see those underlying tendencies that drive our behaviors. They're kind of covered up. So now you have a lot of time, you can start to see what makes you tick. And the fact that you're noticing that is already part of the solution. Over time, they'll just slowly settle down and your meditation will deepen, and hopefully your sutta study can be a kind of way to enrich your practice rather than something to do just because you feel restless or distracted. So that's a really beautiful way to practice, when the teachings actually start to inform your practice and your practice starts to deepen your understanding of the suttas at the same time. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Right, for you. Thank you for this retreat opportunity. If one is going through a specific instance of strong negative emotions, like after a discussion, anger, sadness, etc., is it true that one should not try calm them down through meditating and not even through metta? Thank you.
Not to try and calm them down through wisdom. In other words, they're not yours. That's a wonderful way to calm things down. They're just like the clouds in the sky. You don't control them. Sometimes you may think when it's a very cloudy day and it's raining, you got your washing out, ring up the weather bureau to complain. Of course, that's a waste of time. It's a silly thing to do. That's the same. There's no trying to complain about the anger or the sadness in your mind. It's already there. So just let it be. And then you also get to know a lot about it. If you try and find out about it, again, that trying kind of disturbs it. You just be like this person in the distance. I think like a spy That's by hiding in the bushes, so that the sadness or depression or anger, that they can't see you. So they just become quite natural. You find out what they are. And if you just let them be, that's the most amazing way of allowing these things to disappear, by not feeding them. There's that similarly in the suttas of the anger-eating monster. And each one of those things you were saying, negative emotions, anger, sadness, they are anger-eating monsters. So get out of here, you don't belong. They just get bigger, more of a problem. Leave them alone and they get softer and eventually disappear. And they disappear really quickly sometimes. You're not feeding them.
Okay. Are the 7 enlightenment factors sequential? Ajahn Brahm said in the answer to an earlier question, that once one is developed, the others follow. So does that mean if any one of the 7 is developed, all the rest follow? Well, I would personally say sequential means beginning at the beginning. And of course, it doesn't mean you can't begin anywhere, but it has to loop back round. And I think the reason that the first enlightenment factor is mindfulness is because that's your kind of guide throughout. If you don't have any awareness of what's happening, how can you experience piti? You wouldn't even know you're experiencing piti. So in the enlightenment factors, it begins with mindfulness, and then Dhamma-vichaya, which is like, what do you like to call it? Exploration.
Exploring.
Yeah, exploring faculty of the mind. And these two together are a little bit like right view, co-joined with mindfulness. So in a way, it's very similar to the Eightfold Noble Path. It at least starts in a similar place. And because you're investigating, because the mindfulness is powerful and investigative, informed by wisdom, then energy starts to arise in the mind. So that's the next factor. And it's from that energy that piti arises. You won't have piti in the mind without some amount of clarity, energy, and mindfulness. So in a way, it's sequential from the beginning onwards. And of course, sometimes we might just sit down, it happens to me, and piti arises. I haven't necessarily been practicing much mindfulness, or not intentionally anyway, but piti is just there, and that's maybe because of previous practice, or maybe the piti is just particularly strong. And from the piti, of course, I can become more and more aware because it's easy to be aware, and then the mindfulness can develop. But you can't really, just jump from no mindfulness whatsoever, no wisdom whatsoever, and the kind of piti or tranquility or equanimity that's very deep. So if you want to develop them deeply, I would say you have to practice each one, but it's not that you have to intentionally do it. It's just a natural process. So when there's mindfulness there, and mindfulness along with wisdom, something like sati sampajanya, then the other factors will naturally follow. And it comes at different times for different people. In my experience, it's almost as though the mind has to be so satiated with piti before it can actually let go of the piti, and the piti settles down and turns into tranquility. And then after a while, the tranquility becomes really, really still, more and more still, and then a kind of equanimity arises. But I think really these are probably pointing to very deep equanimity of the 4th jhana in the enlightenment factors. So we can get a taste before those jhanas, but still, it would go quite deep. I hope that makes sense. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, that's good.
All right. Thank you for teaching the meditation and sutta. Would it be helpful to cut out caffeine during the meditation retreat? What do you think, Ajahn? Would it be helpful not to have your Dhamma tea?
No.
All right, that's easy.
Because sometimes you need water to make your body feel healthy. And I was English. I was brought up on tea. And from the very early days, I still remember just visiting a friend, and straight after the baby was taken off the mother's milk, they were giving tea in a little saucer. And that baby loved that tea. And of course, I cannot recall that myself happening to me, but I'm sure it probably did.
You fully injected.
No. But I think that just each one of us needs something. It's natural for us. I remember one rains retreat over in Thailand. The people were kind of joking with me. Ajahn Brahm, if you had a choice between a cup of tea and a jhana, which one would you choose? And kind of joking with me. So I decided, said, look, okay, for the next 3 months, I'm going to live without any cup of tea at all, no caffeine, nothing, just water and juice or whatever. And then 2 days later, they came up to me and said, no, please don't do that, because they recalled living with another monk in Thailand who gave up tea. And he was a pain in the neck for 3 months because he missed his cup of tea. But you know what I do? You've seen me before. I make a resolution. Okay, I'm going to keep that vow and do without tea for 3 months. And I know about my mind and my body and how to look after it. And it was no problem at all. It was just fine. No difference. Because it's a meditation. You can get into deep meditation. That's better than caffeine. I just take caffeine a lot of times, just something to drink. Just like a glass of water.
And a bit of energy.
If I need
For
the energy.
teaching. Yeah.
But then in those days, I didn't need to teach.
Mm.
So I just got nice and sleepy.
Mm.
Nothing wrong with that.
Cool. Next question. Is a nimitta required to enter jhana?
Yes.
But it doesn't have to be a light nimitta.
No. But light nimittas are the most common. And sometimes you go very quickly. You didn't realize you entered into a nimitta.
Mm. All right, I'm going to have a go at this. How do you explain the bare insight arahant, the sukha vipassaka? I don't, because I don't think the Buddha did either. I don't think there's any place in the suttas where this is described. There is one place in the suttas, which I was reading recently, that talks about the 4 kinds of practitioners. And one is the person who develops wisdom first. The next is the one who develops samadhi first. The next is the one who develops both together. And I forget the other one. But it's definitely not neither. It's somehow both as well. I'm not sure if that one's one that gets the insight very quickly, almost intuitively, because of previous practice. I'm not sure. But the point here is that the one who develops insight first still has to develop samadhi later on. And the one who develops samadhi first still has to develop wisdom. So it might be just that some people have a propensity or natural inclination, let's say, towards wisdom or towards samadhi, but you need both. And they usually go together. If you're only practicing samadhi without any wisdom, then it's not the samma samadhi that the Buddha described. If you're only practicing wisdom without samadhi, then it's probably some kind of intellectual understanding. It's not going really deep inside. So real wisdom should make you peaceful, and peace should lead to wisdom. And if it's doing both, then you're on the path to becoming an arahant, as long as you have right view. So it's impossible to have a bare insight arahant, quite frankly. I mean, Ajahn Brahm was just talking about that, about how certainly there's a lot of evidence in the suttas, black and white, to say that you need jhanas, or let's say one who becomes an anagami has gone through the jhanas. It's not that you need it, but it happens. And it seems very kind of common sense that for stream winning the same applies, because the Eightfold Noble Path is required for stream winning. Eightfold Path means samma samadhi as well.
That's such an important delusion. That's why I wanted to say something there as well. We always used to ask someone like an Ajahn Chah, do you need both insight and samatha, peace? And he said, of course, they always go together. Ajahn Chah's simile, you can always see now, see the front of my hand? The back of the hand hasn't disappeared. It's just the front is all you can see. Now you can see the back of my hand. You can't see the front of my hand. Now you can see the side, a bit of the front and the back. They all go together. Samatha vipassana, insight and stillness. You can't separate one from the other. And it's also the sign, the proof that you've got some samatha, some stillness, is you see things as they truly are. Your awareness increases enormously. And so you can see things very clearly. The sign of peace is insight. And the sign of insight is you're peaceful. If you see insight, you don't get involved in things which disturb you. And that means that that's how you find out if you have been practicing insight, how still you become. You know you've been practicing stillness by how many insights keep bubbling up. You can't make a distinction. There's no such thing as just dry insight. I think that's just trying to get away. You haven't found any peace yet, and you think this is insight.
Yeah. Okay. Is it wise to understand which out of the 4 stages of enlightenment one is in? If that curiosity is there, what's the best way to find out?
Which from the 5 stages of enlightenment, there's no enlightenment at all.
Yes. Only by discussing with a teacher, or one can understand oneself somehow. So firstly, most people have not experienced a stage of enlightenment, and that's why Ajahn Brahm mentioned the 5th, which is no stage at all. If you are a stream winner, if you have experienced the stream winning experience, you will be sure of it. There'll be absolutely no doubt. One of the fetters that disappears is doubt. So if you're not sure, that means you're not really that close. And it's okay not to be that close. It's really okay. It's much more dangerous to overestimate, because then we miss out on the immense benefits that these very, very profound stages have to offer. And we think we're a stream winner and we're still suffering immensely and taking ourselves to be solid and fighting with other people. And my goodness, if that's stream winning, it's really depressing, isn't it? It's really depressing. I'd much rather think that I'm already really peaceful and happy and I'm still not even a stream winner. Yay! It's going to get so much better. So don't try to even think about it. If something happens, it's going to blow your mind completely. And hopefully you will have a teacher who can help you navigate this sort of, spiritual kind of over materialism and all the kind of experiences that can happen on the way. Even prior to jhana, you can get incredibly peaceful. I've been sitting in meditation for like 6-hour stretches with no obvious hindrances, no thinking for week after week, month after month. It was pre-jhana. It was profound. There was barely anybody. There was just vibration. There was lots of piti. There was just total inspiration. Still, I don't know, maybe I had good teachers, but I knew this wasn't jhana. So it's a good thing, when what we experience so far is not the depth that the Buddha taught. That's a good thing, because really, if a Buddha is saying there's something more, we have to believe him. So I think one of the biggest problems I was going to say the Western world, but I think it's happening even in Sri Lanka and other countries too, is overestimation, because we come from a sense of self and we want to kind of believe that we have something. That we are something. And if we don't like who we are right now, then let's make a spiritual sense of self instead. So don't be in too much of a rush. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
Do you agree?
Okay, I haven't told a story yet.
All right, tell a story.
Okay, about this Sri Lankan lady who lived in a quite remote area, who went to visit her children. And the children got a bit bored with her in the city. So they said, Granny or Mum, that I've heard about this retreat center just opened up in Colombo, the capital of Sri Lanka. And there is a big retreat, 60 days. And you're not just doing meditation, we give you classes as well. It's expensive, but we'll pay for it, Mum. So would you like to go to that retreat center for 60 days? I said, oh, yes. So off she went, and she did very, very well. Meditation, talking with the teachers there. There weren't monks or nuns, they were lay people. And after 60 days, finishing the retreat, the leaders of that retreat center went up to her and said, ma'am, you've done so well on this retreat. We've talked about your knowledge, your experiences in meditation, and we've all come to a unanimous conclusion that you are a stream winner. And then she got angry with them. What, a stream winner? Yes, madam. It's a wonderful achievement. You're not going to go to any lower realms. You're destined for enlightenment. Why are you so angry at us, madam? You don't remember me, do you? No. I was here about 3 or 4 years ago, and you told me I was a once returner. Now you've demoted me. You can't give certificates or assess people that much, even if you have had an experience, and stream winning is an experience. I know this from when I read or started studying the Vinaya in Pali. If like a monk or a nun, a bhikkhuni, states that they're a stream winner, you have to investigate it. And one of the things you have to ask is, where did that happen? When did that happen? And if they say, well, it just kind of happened slowly, so that's not good enough. That's not stream winning. And that's, in the Pali. And that was really powerful for me to see that. And if it does, you think it does happen, usually it takes a while. You have to wait and to see if those defilements come up again. Because sometimes those defilements, which, are supposed to be abandoned as a stream winner, you think they're gone, but sometimes they're just suppressed for a while. And then maybe for days or months or years. And if after a long time they don't come up again, then you can be pretty confident they've been abandoned.
Awesome. It's interesting that the questions are a lot around attainments, and I want to speak to that a bit. But the next question is, what if you attain jhanas in a previous life? Can you skip them in this one? Or do you have to attain them again to be able to see clearly? So I'll answer this very briefly, but I think there's something more behind these questions that I want to address. So basically, it's not a matter of can you skip them or have to attain them. It's just a matter, of course, that you will naturally experience jhanas again if you've already practiced them before. It will be kind of a deep inclination in the mind. And as to whether you experience them in this life or the next, they will be there. You will experience them again. And I would say that most likely, unless you're very free from hindrances throughout the days, you would probably have to come out of a state of mind where the hindrances have been abandoned for some time to be able to see things as they are, to see things clearly enough to break through to stream winning. However, a lot of these questions to me seem to suggest a little bit of anxiety around whether or not this is within reach for anybody here. And I can understand that it's tricky to hear about these things in the first day of a retreat. And then we start to wonder, it seems so far away from me. Am I sure? Do I really have to do this? Is it actually possible for me? Or am I a hopeless case? This is really not the point. Some people are laughing. I mean, many of us feel like that sometimes, I'm sure I've felt like that before. But now I'm a bit wiser and I understand that, the main thing is that how is your practice helping you in your life? Are you developing more kindness? Are you developing more equanimity in the face of things going wrong? Are you developing more compassion, more wisdom, more kind of ability to navigate the difficulties in your life, and also to sustain virtuous conduct of body, speech, and mind? These are the signs of progress, and this is already giving you heaps and heaps and heaps of happiness. So the talk of jhanas and stream winning and full enlightenment is just to inspire, to say that this is what will inevitably happen to every one of us if we carry on walking on the path. But in the meantime, there's so much happiness from the very beginning of observing our precepts. The Buddha said that just by living a pure lifestyle, and that means just committing to the precepts, not always being perfect, we experience something called anavajja sukha, which means blameless bliss. Through sense restraint, we develop something called abhyasekara sukha, which means unblemished bliss. And mindfulness brings greater happiness because it comes with clarity, it comes with more awakeness, more alertness in the mind, and wisdom along with that, knowing what to do when and what the proper context is to speak or to remain silent. And then we start to meditate on the breath, and very soon, even after watching the breath coming in and going out, we start to experience some peace. And throughout the suttas, long before jhana, it talks about piti and sukha. bliss of the mind, a wholesome happiness that comes from within. And so this is all there. And part of the problem, I think, with talking about jhanas and stream winning is we're kind of unable to be content with where we are. And then we miss the whole path, because contentment can only be where we are now. And so the first step, the step we're taking now, is so valuable and so precious. And if we can only stay with our present experience and embrace it, rather than wish for something deeper, something further, something more sublime, then we can actually have a chance to start moving inward. And these things will just happen in time. And it won't be the end of your suffering. So don't worry about it. I got that from Bhante Sujata. Some people said after Bhante Sujata came here, I started speaking like him. I don't actually speak like him, but I do say, don't worry about it. And that is from Bhante Sujata. Yeah. He keeps going, don't worry about it.
He was Australia. She'll be right, mate.
Yeah.
No worries.
He'll be right too, and they'll be right as well.
Okay,
so don't worry. That's okay. All right, well, we do have 2 people who've asked a second question, and we do have 5 minutes. So maybe I'll go to the first person who asked the second question first. This is not an encouragement to ask 2 questions every day, because there'll be more questions tomorrow for sure. So let's have a look. Okay, so here we go. You got energy? 5 more minutes?
Yes. Great energy.
That was a very certain yes.
Okay, go on.
All right. Over the last few years, I've been having very long and vivid dreams regularly, 3 to 4 nights a week. Some can be distressing, some premonitory, like premonitions.
Yes, yeah.
Others are inspiring and uplifting, including some where you or other senior monks appear. What about nuns? I have to say that it's my role in life. I'm wondering what to make of these and how to attend skillfully to the mind as these continue to occur. Throughout the day, I got more peaceful. The breath seems to still quite quickly, and nimittas arise. However, the moment they begin to get a bit stable, thoughts intrude, i.e., example, questioning what I'm supposed to do at this stage, but then telling myself there's nothing I need to do. The thoughts then still again. This continues throughout the meditation, like nimittas gently emerging, but then a battle of thoughts happening. The moment the nimittas start to stabilize. Help!
Okay, that's an easy one. Can I do that?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, even the dreams, first of all. Please, when you go to sleep at night, you lay in your bed and you make a resolution. You program your mindfulness. So you say to yourself, I will have a nice, peaceful sleep. You'd be surprised at how powerful that can be. And then any negative dreams disappear. And then when you are meditating, you program your mindfulness again. So when you are meditating, you say, if a nimitta comes up, I will just let it be. You say that in your own words. But you say, if a nimitta comes up, I will let it be. I won't get rid of it. I won't hold it. In your own words, I will leave it alone. If a nimitta comes up, I will leave it alone. And that's the easiest thing to do. And then the nimittas come up, they get brighter and brighter and brighter. And then you may sort of exit your meditation because you get scared. So the next time you meditate, you say, if a nimitta comes up, I won't feel any fear. Because sometimes those nimittas get so strong, so powerful. And I remember just recently, one of the meditators told me, their nimitta was so powerful, they thought they're going to explode. They can't take so much bliss. I said, yes, you can. It's a very lovely thing to say. If you really want to bliss out, it doesn't kill you. It just makes you go into deeper meditation. So see if you can be your personal best on bliss. So you just program your mindfulness. If you're very still, the bliss starts coming up and you try to think and think and think, it's the wrong time. It destroys the meditation. So instead, just give yourself the instructions beforehand. And then what you've instructed at the beginning, that program will do its job.
Excellent. All right, last question. How to balance relax to the max and sloth and torpor? So I would say at this stage, on the first day of a retreat, just relax to the max. That's it. And if sloth and torpor arises, it's because you're tired.
So go to bed.
Go to sleep. So don't even try to balance it at this stage. It's good to relax. If it becomes a chronic problem, like, this always happens when you meditate, and then it might be that the relaxation is stronger than the actual mindfulness. Is that possible, Ajahn?
Yeah.
I think it can be. So then you might want to just slightly see if you can see the joy in what you're aware of. See if you can find something interesting to kind of rest the mind on, and to even, it's a weird thing to say, but I think sometimes we think we're relaxed to the max, but actually if we relax a bit more and for longer and more fully, then the energies start to come back. I remember being on a 3 months rains retreat in Perth a few years ago. And by the middle of the retreat, I told Ajahn, oh, it's just not going as deep as it normally does. And, or I forget what it was exactly, maybe something like that. And you said to me, oh, not enough stillness, just do nothing. And it was almost like an instruction to go right back to the beginning, like what Ajahn Brahm calls the kind of foundations of meditation, this present moment awareness. And so I completely let go of the breath. If the breath arose, I actually said, nope, not interested. I'm just going to be present. And I think you said to me at the time, you'll probably go through some sloth and torpor. And I thought, nah, not in the middle of a retreat. I'm already energized. But actually, the fact that I was restraining doing almost completely meant that I did go through these strange, sort of sleepy, kind of semi-dreamy stages, but I just left them alone. And after about 3 days like this, the breath just appeared in a really blissful way. It wasn't like I had to start with just nice, peaceful breath. It was like so blissful that it just carried on that way for days and days and days. So sometimes don't worry about it, actually. If you can really kind of allow it, then the mind starts to recharge and you get into this beautiful kind of passive awareness that's really not wasting energy. And what I also noticed after that experience was that when thoughts started coming back after quite a few days, even a few thoughts, like 2 or 3 thoughts in a meditation session, meant that I had to sleep longer. It was amazing. It showed me like how much energy they take up.
Excellent.
In the brain. That was really interesting. So yeah, don't worry about it and don't waste energy fighting it. That's what I would say.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much for your questions. Today we did all of them. Yay!
Yeah.
That's good.
It won't happen again. Don't get too many expectations.
You never know. Thank you for your wonderful questions and for your very sincere practice. And honestly, I just want to give you all confidence that time and when and all this how, it's really quite irrelevant. Just enjoy following the path. The fact that we came in contact with the Dhamma in this life, the fact that we have confidence in the Dhamma to the extent that you've created 6 days of retreat time for yourself is massive. It's absolutely massive. How many people in the whole world are here right now? 66 people out of how many billions of people in the world? So you're definitely on the path, and don't worry, it really will continue to unfold in its own time. I think the reason we get worried is because it doesn't happen according to our own timeline. But if we can get rid of that idea of time, you're certainly on one of the last lives. Don't you think? Even if it's not this life, we can't have that many more left. Oh, don't shrug. You got to say yes. It's not long now.
Say whatever.
What? That's teenage speak.
Yeah, I know. That's me young.
Okay, whatever. But just anyway.
You can't do better.
You can't do better. And by the way, I'll just end with one more thing because I'm energized now. I love this, what Bhikkhu Bodhi said. Have you heard that one? He said there's only 2 things required for stream winning. To start walking on the path.
Yeah.
And to continue.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's really nice, isn't it?
It is, yes.
So you're doing both. So very good. All right. So good night, everybody. Shall we do 3 big sadhus?
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Nice to see Eric, who was supposed to be here, but you're over there. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Really.